Now, the rest of the story.
I'm down at the valley. The job isn't finished yet. We still have about, I'd say we have over 2/3 of our hay to make yet that we had on the ground. The last of our hay that needs to be made for the year. We got an inch and 1/10. I just checked the rain gauge down here. As you can tell behind me, a little bit of rain is exactly what the doctor ordered for how much this is greened up just in the last 12 hours. We had a pretty good thunderstorm. It actually woke me up a few times. But the hay that we made last night, it was already overripe, so that's why you see all this brown stuff, material in it. Well, the thing is, the cows will eat that right along with the green stuff, and I don't worry about it. So I have the tension on the deer baler. This through here was made with the 569. I put 4 wraps of net wrap on it, and I actually got a pretty firm bale. And overall, it boils down to the management. The reason that I do it like that, keeping them tight and then wrapping them like I do, is it does give this bale, the material, a little bit of protection from the weather. So this side, you can see it's clearly, back up here, is that better? Clearly wet right on the surface, but you don't have to actually dig in very deep. I mean, it's literally surface deep, and that grass is dry as it was last night, so I'm happy for that. These bales won't be stacked up tight against each other because they will need time to air out and also kind of steam out regardless of the rain that we got. This side of the bale was obviously more protected. It was facing more south. It smells beautiful. I wish you guys could smell this. I mean, it really does. And having this bale wrapped like this, so the rain, assuming it came straight down, the material is dry right there. So this much, you guys can see that? This much of the bale actually has water on it from the rain, okay? So that means everything from my thumb down, for the most part, and only surface deep on like this side, because it was taking more of the blunt force of the rain we got last night. The bales that we made handled the weather really well. These are probably on the next on the list that'll get fed out. I got a bunch up at home right now. I got, I think, about 25 I'm feeding through. That was waterway hay, and that stuff is it's lower quality. So I'd rather, if I'm gonna feed lower quality, I'd rather feed it to the cows right now. And actually you can see right on the bale where the water ran down to right there, and it's actually dry below that. So for how dry we are, and we were, an 1.25 inches isn't really gonna stay in the ground that long. We got a light breeze. It's kind of cool out. I mean, yeah, I got my heavy coat on because it's the only coat I could find, because it's actually kind of cold down here. But the sun is supposed to be coming out. They're calling for 78 and 80 the next 2 days. The thing I'm concerned about is the primary source of my cattle feed, the upper and lower bottom. It's not everything that I have left to make, but I can't afford it to start rotting on me. So let's go down and check it. And upon further inspection, I'm a little bit relieved, because this is looking pretty well like what I was expecting to see when I came down here. Yeah, we had a bunch of rain. We all know that. But the grass was fairly green to begin with yet. It wasn't completely dried out. If this stuff was, dried out to the point where it actually has like a blue hue to it, then I'd be panicking. The only thing that I'm seeing, which I was expecting, is I'm gonna have to ted this stuff back out. This stuff is so heavy down here. This has already been tedded once, but it's got water all the way through it, and even the ground really isn't even wet. It's just surface deep, a little bit of mud. So that's probably what I'll be doing tomorrow. For everything, I haven't baled anything that I tedded on Sunday, 2 days ago. So about 5 hours I can have this tedded out, and I can probably do it a little bit. Now I was actually pushing it pretty hard when I was doing that. But you can see my passes. This is where the tedder was. This is where the tedder was. So what I'd end up doing is actually splitting the difference. So I come down here and ted this again. I'm gonna try to utilize these areas in between, and I'm actually gonna run right down the center here. I'll grab part of that, part of this, and I'll actually pull them apart and pull them together into this open area, and I'll just hopscotch do that for the rest of the bottom. So it's just doing what you really have to do to get your cows fed. I'm not really looking at selling any of this stuff at this point. I mean, I would if I felt I had an abundance, but I won't know that until I'm done baling. For those of you that are potentially wondering how many bales I have, all together that we made yesterday between Ryan and myself, we had 57 bales, and we already fed one of them out, 2 of them out. So, oh well. This is actually, all things considered, this is the ideal circumstances I was hoping to have with up to an inch. I was actually told like maybe a half of an inch or so, but being as dry as we were and for how green material was, I don't think it's hurting it. I mean, I'd have a completely different tone in my voice if I came down here and it smelled rotten. The thing that concerns me is tomorrow and the next day they're not calling for rain, but then the following 3 days they are calling for rain. So if I don't have something done with this in the next 2 days, leaving it lay for, it had been a week by then, and then have 3 more days of rain on it with what it dries out by then, I'm gonna have a mess. So I'm definitely gonna be going home and working on the 569. I was actually outpacing Ryan, and I ended up pushing my baler. It's where our wood post used to be. I ended up pushing my baler a bit harder than I would have liked, but the 79 dragging that 569 around the field was actually a lot of fun. A lot smoother. Different transmission to do that though. Right here. This is the only real concern I had for the amount of rain we had, because granted it was only an inch, a little over an inch. These low-lying spots down here in this reclaimed ground, I'm standing smack dab in probably the lowest spot outside of that deer shelter spring we had when I was making it last time. I did actually drive through that all right too. I white knuckled it just a little bit just because I wasn't sure what to expect, because I've sunk the 76 down here before. I wasn't expecting it to be that bad, but we still have, granted, you got to stem your expectations outside of the weeds we got right here, but still got the cracks in the soil, so all that water has some place to go. This is the part of the field I'd be worried about water pooling. So right back to what I just said, I would be worried about getting a change in the weather pattern that'll ultimately result in getting inches of rain to where this area turns back into soft, unmaneuverable, unmanageable ground. And by unmanageable, I mean I'm still banking pretty hard on dragging my ripper through here. I think it'll benefit this quite a bit, honestly. So it's future proofing this ground down here, and I'm trying to manage it next year for this year. But once again, this stuff wasn't super duper dry. I'm glad we cut it when we did, because we actually started Friday and finished it Saturday. I tedded it Sunday. I mean, this looks bad because this is like the only spot where there's weeds in this whole field, and I decided to go stand in it. But the grass is still fairly green. It's like we just cut this. I mean, come on. I actually need some sunlight. Yeah, that hasn't dried at all. So, going through and cutting it when we did, it actually gained us a little bit more time to dry versus waiting until Saturday to cut, because then we probably would have been cutting, we would have finished cutting Sunday, and I wouldn't have had this tedded out till maybe yesterday, which I don't think would have hurt me, again, because the stuff in the hill wasn't tedded out anyway, so I would at least been able to get the stuff down here done, and it would have had probably more of the greenness in it yet. But I still don't think I've lost much, if any, feed value down in here that on any of this yet. So it's still keeping quality. It's just that I do have a timer running on me in regards to how long I can play chicken with the weather before I gotta start making some serious decisions. And I've already started having that conversation, and if the weather forecast doesn't change like significantly to where the chance of getting this dried down is just out of the question, like dry, we're gonna bring the wrapper down here and we're gonna wrap a bunch of it. It's just, I'm in a position where I can't afford to have another 3 days of rain or have this stuff start to rot on me. I mean, I don't really want to have to feed that to my cows. I mean, granted, I know I've had a change in tone. My cows were bought as a recycling system for this farm down here, but that was 10 to 15 cows that, you know, the calves they're producing is, you know, making up for what hay that I have to feed out to them, because it's not worth selling it. Well, now we've gotten to that point where on an average year, I'm still going to overproduce what my cows can generally eat off of down here, but I'm getting enough cows around where I want to make sure that they are still getting some decent feed, because the cows actually have to be able to pay for themselves too. I mean, having 60 head of cattle around is a big difference from having 15 head of cattle around. You actually need them to be able to perform, and you have to give them enough of the nutrients and the goodies that they need that they can actually do what they need to do. But I'm gonna head back to the farm and do some maintenance and feed some cows, and I'll probably include you guys in on some of that too.